I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
5:31. Roll call, please.
Emily Hunt Daly.
Here.
Robert Hayes.
Here.
Richard Jones.
Here.
Ron Ortiz.
Here.
Dr. Guy Campbell.
Yes, here. Number 2, adoption of agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda?
Good evening, Mr. President, Board. Yes, there is. I would like to move the school site success under presentations 6A to the next board meeting. The staff were not, or the folks are not all able to make it this evening.
Okay.
With that change, I recommend that we adopt the agenda.
Was there a motion to approve as amended? Emily Hunt Daly, is there a second?
Second.
Bob Hayes. Roll call.
Emily Hunt Daly. Robert Hayes.
Yes.
Richard Jones.
Aye.
Ron Ortiz.
Yes.
Dr. Guy Campbell.
Yes. Minutes, take a look at the minutes briefly, see if there's anything. Page 6. So the question,
Vice President Emily Hunt Daly voted aye.
voted aye, would you make note on that, page 6, so, thank you.
Space.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve adopt the minutes?
I make a motion, we approve
Motion made by Richard Jones.
as amended.
As amended. Is there a second?
One second.
As amended, okay. Ron Ortiz to approve the minutes as amended. Roll call.
Emily Hunt Daly.
Yes.
Robert Hayes.
Yes.
Richard Jones.
Aye.
Ron Ortiz.
Yes.
Dr. Guy Campbell.
Yes. Motion carries for this one and the previous one. Recognitions?
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board. Next, I wish I could take credit for this one, but I can't. So I would like to turn this over to the team here.
Mr. President, Board, as you may or may not know, January is School Board Appreciation Month.
Wow.
No, I didn't know.
And so, together with all of us from all the departments and the school sites, we just put together some gifts for you all to show how much that you are appreciated. We know that it's a thankless job. You get phone calls all the time, day and night. I don't think you very often get to hear the good stuff. You always get to hear the bad stuff. So we appreciate you all very much and all of the time that you volunteer for all of us. So thank you.
Christmas, Easter. Thank you.
Christmas.
Must be Christmas.
Christmas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next month?
My birthday,
I remember.
a couple weeks.
There you go.
So
Go on.
now you have plenty of pirate gear and Viking gear and tiger gear and hawk gear and all kinds of stuff.
Appreciate that, appreciate that.
Very much thank you.
Toys in there, maybe?
We want dozens of eggs though, because those are, like a premium right now.
Yeah, they're valuable. Coffee cups?
Once our ag program is up and going and we have our chicken coop back here.
There you go.
You might be able to sell them for $20 a dozen.
Fantastic.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's just makes, but call us, adjourn the meeting now.
Perfect.
Done. So moved.
Somebody second.
I think that we all recognize the personal challenges it takes to participate in this as board members. And every one of us appreciates it. We do recognize that it is a thankful job. I do thank myself and my family. Thank you, Guy. You gotta enjoy it, please, and I do. My wife supports me, my family supports us, and so I think that that it's not just us, it's our families that are backing us up too all the time. And we will continue to persevere with the work that we have at hand. Anybody else wants to make a comment?
Just thank you very, very much. That was really nice, very thoughtful.
Yes, it's just really,
Thank you.
yeah, it's a second Christmas for me.
There you go.
It's good.
But I'd just like to say you make our jobs easier because
do.
because
It's
of that.
happening.
Because you're competent, you're professional, you're never tiring. Being in a field of education, you don't go into it for the money. You go in it for the love of teaching and working with students. And I think that's probably why we go into it, because we want to see all our students succeed. So we appreciate you just as much as you appreciate us and the parents. It's wonderful. Thank you. Go on and satisfied.
Beautiful. Just smiling. Surprised. Citizens to address the board.
There are none.
Presentations.
Yes, sir. So first presentation, actually discussion, if you will. The Legislative Finance Committee hearing report, I thought it'd be important, as most of you would think, that we share the experiences we've gone through the last several weeks, which culminated into the Legislative Finance Committee hearing in Santa Fe yesterday. We were notified on September 29th that we were one of the lucky chosen districts to undergo this Legislative Finance Committee audit. So since that time, we underwent a series of interviews, lots of document requests that we complied with. A lot of discussions, a lot of emails back and forth. For the purpose that they stated was to examine the governance and oversight structures of the district, to evaluate the trends in student achievement and instruction, and to study the business management and resource allocation. So it was very interesting, I have to say, throughout all of this. We asked a lot of questions. They asked us tons of questions. I hope that they found what they were, it seemed like they accomplished what they were wanting to accomplish. The report is on the website. It's official now. When we met, we had the documents that was packaged and delivered. We did respond, both districts, Central Consolidated Schools and us. Some of the questions we asked is, why were we so lucky? And another question we asked is why we were coupled with another school district. So we asked several questions about, what about this process? What's it all about? And what do we expect to get out of it and that kind of thing. So we went through that whole deal yesterday at 9 o'clock at the Capitol Building in Santa Fe. We had a good show of support. We had Dr. Rochambeau was there, Emily Hunt Daly was there, myself and all of our team of directors were there. We had 4 teachers who were there. We had Principal Reyes, who's here, Senior Reyes Jaramillo. We had Assistant Principal Monica Sanchez. And who am I leaving out? I think that was it. Dr. Martin was there as part of our administrative team. So We presented at the Roundhouse, and the research team that was here doing our classroom walkthroughs and interviews and so on, they opened up the meeting, so they got, it was quite a committee. LFC, I don't know if you've seen them lately, but it's the full bench. It was packed. There was 12 people maybe or more. And then they had tables set up in the front, so senators and representatives in the front as well. So it was a pretty packed house, chaired by Patty Lundstrom, and assistant chair is George Munoz. Of course, you know, Harry Garcia is also on that Legislative Finance Committee. And then you got others from all over the state. So after this research committee presented the findings, I'll have to say, and I've said it to them, and I said to everybody, that it was a very negative tone to the whole deal. And I'm not sure if that's just the way that these audits work typically. But the opening was school districts continue to be low performing despite the huge influx of funds. What it was worded differently, but so as we went through, of course, I guess with these kind of audits, they try to look for flaws in our system, flaws in our governance, flaws in our administration, flaws in our budgeting. And I think they did in fact do that. Yeah, so they looked for what they could find. But I have to say, anybody here was there can correct me if I'm wrong, that we stood up to what we believe in. We stood up to having a good process. We're not perfect. There were some things that were brought up that I had to correct right off the bat. When they said declining reading proficiency over the last 5 years or so, I corrected them on the timeline, saying that, sure, that's true. But if you look at the time span that they told us that they were going to be looking at, the last 3 years, it was quite the opposite. Our reading proficiency scores are increasing. Our graduation rates are increasing. So if you move back and start including the data from before those years, it does take a negative toll on that. There was things like that. We did argue with, there were some incidents that were stated that happened well before the 3 years. And there are things that happened across the district, across the state. And that's what was a little bit troubling, I think, for both of us, is when we were explaining some of our answers. I think there's a few times where we said, yes, that's true, but it's also true with districts throughout the state. We were not, it was presented as though we were the only 2 districts, and the state, for example, that had large cash balances, or we were the only 2 districts in the state that had increasing student behavior problems. So that's the part that we tried our best to give a context that, yes, we have those issues, but so do 87 other districts in the state. So it was quite an interesting process. So they asked, it was supposed to be a 10-minute presentation by Central Consolidated, 10-minute presentation by Grants, and then 40 minutes of questions. What it turned out to be is 10 minutes. Dr. Guy did share in the opening comments with my opening. And then after we concluded those opening statements, there was about 2 hours of questioning to myself and the superintendent from Central Consolidated. I have to say that there was a couple of senators and legislators that seemed to really have some fact-finding questions, and were down-to-earth questions, wanted to find out, really what's really going on, what's our perspective, and that kind of thing. But a lot of the other questions seem to almost assume that there's something wrong. You know, that's my opinion of it. So it was again an interesting process. I'm still not sure of what the objective is and what we were supposed to take away from it. From everything that I know, this goes into a file and it'll be archived. We did respond formally, and you'll have copies of the full report and the responses from us and from Central Consolidated. So we think that the whole process is over. But when we left the meeting, they said that in 30 days, they're gonna have an implementation matrix for us. So that was never part of the initial presentation of the process. So still curious about how this is gonna continue on. But we'll discuss that at some point later. But everybody here was at the session. I hope that I stated that correctly, summarized it. Mr. Aramillo was there, and we did reflect as a team, as you would expect. We did. We got our team together this morning. We didn't include you, Reyes, this morning, but just to talk about the experience, talk about its purpose, talk about the outcomes, talk about what does it mean to the district, and is it going to have a positive impact on what we do? Is it going to have any impact on what we do? And so that was our experience up to this point. That's what I have to say, Mr. President.
Board members, questions, comments?
What were the answer to the two questions?
Which
The
ones?
two questions is why did they implement Fuller County Schools? And number two is why did they lump us with Central Consolidated?
So the first question I asked with the very first meeting we had with the research team, my question was, why were we chosen? And I asked for the criteria. They said they would have that to me in writing. And so time went along. They did say the answer to that was, well, they do this with different districts throughout time. They've done a few districts since 2017. It was now time to do the northwest side of the state, but then it changed a little bit. So they're doing the west side of the state for school districts. But I didn't stop questioning. Then I asked, okay, so I got that part. So you're doing the western side of the state. So on the western side of the state, there's a lot of districts. Why was Grants chosen? And they said, well, it's a population of over 1,000 students. Okay, we meet that criteria. It is a school district that has low performing student performance. Okay, we meet that criteria. And then the third one was
Number of audit findings.
high number of audit findings. Okay, so I found that one curious because our audit findings have actually been in a very healthy way, from going from 24, 26 down to 5. So that was their answer, is those three criteria. I think we met two of the three. So why were we coupled with Central Consolidated? Well, they used the same criteria. Central Consolidated has low student performance. Central Consolidated has over 1,000 students, and Central Consolidated has a large number of audit findings and finance. So that was their answer.
Mr. President, if you would, they said there was going to be a 30-day, what did you call it a second ago?
Implementation.
Yeah, implementation, and they gave no hint of that at the beginning of all this, like at the end of it all, we're gonna say you must do this, or we're gonna ask you to do this.
And we're not even sure what it is
Yeah, I
yet. So
know.
I did ask I talked to the superintendent in Central, and I asked him if he knew of anything about this implementation matrix at the beginning of the process, and he said no, that they were all surprised by that additional piece to the process. So we're still in wonder
So, one question, did you check with Alpena Public Schools to see if they, any of those going through the audit, did they have to do the same thing, or is it just us?
I'm not sure, Madam, Mr. President, we looked at some of the reports from the past, and they're similar to the report that we received. I think this is, in a lot of ways, this is routine for the group. So that's, but it's still,
I guess this was wait and see.
Shall I pontificate? That's what the chairperson of the committee said, I pontificated. And I'll do it again. But thank you, Mr. Perez, for reporting on that. There's more to be said about that. My question is, what are we gonna do with it, or do we already know what we're going to do without even having had this report? If we didn't have this report, we would sustain our effort. What's new that they've said to us that we would find useful? And all these reports, all these other school districts over the years, they have conclusions, findings, recommendations. And then they say thank you, and then they go on their way. So that in essence is culminates it. The process basically begins with a decision to go to any department in the state besides education. Could be any of the other departments can be picked. So then we have these evaluations, sites, and then they have these hearings. Findings, conclusions, recommendations are made. And that is the end of it. And so we have to, as a district and as a board, to try to determine whether or not we have anything that we can benefit from with respect to this, that is new, that might be helpful. Or do we already have a plan in place that is identifying those things? That's what we'll need to see. As for the what I thought were ad hoc comments made at the end, they were just off the cuff, saying we should look at certain things and all that. That seemed to be not a part of normal deliberation or conclusion. Very little thanks.
Of course.
And it was over. So I think we need to glean a few things from it and then move on. We will continue to probably have some kind of conversation in the future internally. And you'll leave it up to you to find out if there's anything else that is going on.
I will keep you informed.
Yeah, thank you. But our staff was there. And that was really commendable. Those who were there, I think they learned a lot. I'm not sure what they learned, but they learned the mechanics of politics,
Oof.
legislative politics and power.
Yeah,
That's what it
I
was.
think that's what it was.
Okay, and so it was probably revealing to you how the citizens have selected senators and representatives who have as a function conducting of hearings to collect information and engage in conversations, and then they'll determine what best they can do with it after that. So, thank you very much. Without any further ado, let's go on to the next topic.
Mr. President and Board, the next presentation is strategic plan monitoring update. As I've talked to you a few times before, we do have a strategic plan monitoring tool. I'd like to show it to you a little bit more in depth.
Mr. President, we wanted to share with you our strategic plan monitoring tool and what we did as a team, a leadership team at the very beginning of January, to take this strategic plan and make it a continuous working document. And I will say that I think this is the first time that I've been involved in a strategic plan that has continuously been brought up and worked on intentionally. We met on January 4th, and some of you were able to join us there for a little while that day. And we met as a leadership team to discuss the upcoming issues as well as take a look at our strategic plan. We developed a sheet that has one goal on every sheet. It was a two-sided sheet, and we broke into groups of 2 or 3, and everyone got 6 or 7 goals to look at. And we were looking at what evidence has been posted, what have we done, what information do you have? If this critical action has not been started, what is that barrier for us starting? Why haven't we started? What's keeping us from doing this? What do we need to put in place so that we can get these things done? And then, we're gonna go to the next one. And then we rated this. We rated this using a scale of not started all the way to exceeds our timeline or expectations. And when we did that, we calculated it into our strategic plan monitoring tool to where as we marked those, you can see on the left, as we marked those with what stage that critical action is in, then it populates a chart at the very end to tell us this is how many goals that we have are on one, and this is how many goals that we have are on the other. This was supposed to be a 2-hour activity that day. This landed up taking just about the entire day, but the conversations between our leaders were so good. We were still talking about it in the airport the next day. So, I mean, just the conversations between our leaders, the transparency between everybody in the room, and I'm gonna let everybody else here share what their experience with the who's gonna go first?
One thing I had shared with our superintendent, being new as a district leader, I shared that this was something that, when I was a principal, we had never done. So it was rich, it was powerful because we had conversations between departments, site leadership, and then district leadership. So it wasn't just a one-sided conversation, it was everybody. And I think the part where Raina mentioned, we were broken up into teams. We were not teams that worked together. It was not just principals or just high school principals, elementary. We were divided up with department sites and district leadership. And so the conversations were valuable because we got to share what we knew was going on from our department, and they shared what was going on within their coordinator departments. And it was eye-opening. And I think the coordinators, department heads, they took away a lot of information, and they also shared. This was one of the things that they hope the district will continue, because they got information that was not always shared with them. So it was a team effort. That was the most important thing. It was a team, it was a district team.
I want to talk mostly about the tool phase, because as leaders, we get these strategic plans because it's something that the district has to do, and we see them and we're able to review them. I think that the tool took us from that information piece, here's the information, this is our strategic plan, this is what it says, and made it a more actionable piece. I think that those of us that aren't directors and that don't work at central office, it gave us a look into and we like to say we know what's going on at central office all the time, but we don't know those little ins and outs, those little critical actions. And it gave us a good look into what goes into the strategic plan, how are we going to reach those goals? And it gave us an opportunity to kind of voice how we felt, because how we feel about what's going on in a certain department or the steps that are being taken in a certain department towards those goals aren't necessarily aligned, and we're not super knowledgeable about those things. And it gave us an opportunity as leaders to say, like, well, I don't really think that that's going on. And it then in turn gave those directors an opportunity to say, no, this is what this looks like. This is what we're doing. And it brought us super close together as a team because we were able to see those things. And like I said, I want to talk about the tool because the tool takes it, for me at least, from being an informational piece to an actionable piece. And that's something that I had never seen before. I've always seen a strategic plan, but I've never seen the things that go along with it, the evidence pieces, the action pieces, how we measure those pieces, the timeline. So I think that that was really, it was enlightening, and it's something that I would like to take back to our site on a department level at our site. This is how our counseling department should function. These are the goals that we've set for that department. This is how finance should. And I think that that tool is easily translated into what we do on a school site. I think that it's beneficial to what we do on a school site. But again, it was beneficial for us to see what goes into the strategic plan. And at least for me, critical action piece, like, okay, these are the goals, but how are we going to reach them? And how are they attainable? So it was a pretty powerful tool, the tool itself. And like you said, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Reyes is gonna say ditto.
Yeah, they took everything from me. No,
Okay, say it anyway.
so my idea was to present on the fact that when we were grouped in those groups for this session that we did, I was grouped with someone from the finance department who we would have never had a chance to work together in that setting. And she was giving me insight on the finance portion and all the finance pieces to the strategic plan. And then when it came to like academics and things like that, she's like, I don't know what that means. And so we were able to discuss things and related to the strategic plan. And so I think the biggest takeaway from there is we understand the strategic plan a whole lot more. Rather than looking at it and seeing all the goals on there, we became like experts in 6 of the goals. And so I feel very confident in those 6 goals that I could go back and tell myself, these are the 6 goals and we can work on this. And then after doing the presentation, everyone presented their goals. And so we were able to take away like a whole lot from, it's not just a strategic plan that's placed on the shelf. It's something that we're using and what is the word that we used? Evidence. So the evidence, if there's no evidence there, then we as district leaders can say, well, I can add something to that because I have a sign-in sheet for parent engagement or different things like that. So I think it just brings us all together as a district.
We were all able to contribute to it, and I think that was like a good message for everybody, is that everybody knows now that even though it might not say school site principals, or it might not say special education department, or it might not say student success or student services, support services, we all know that we can help each other. And it was almost like all of the pieces of the puzzle started to come together there. And like Stevie said, we became a lot better team. Excuse me. And then on this form that I gave you, these are the ones that every group did for every critical action. And there's recommendations for next steps on that. And so we took these back, and we're in the process right now of compiling all of those with our strategic plan monitoring tool, so that we, if that one is directly something that I'm responsible for, I can go back and note what the team recommended that we do to move forward on that. So to say that this session was, go ahead, Dr. Martin.
If I may add something, during that session, there were a lot of great ideas that came, that were suggested and were listed down by Mr. Maldonado as well. So, I'm hoping most of those great ideas are utilized and, you know what I mean, are incorporated in everything that we do. I find them really great.
Come on, Mr. Miller.
think every great organization, and this goes back to something Mr. President says, is we want to be the best. You know, and to be the best, you have to know where you are. And it's not just one thing in a school district. It's all this information right here. So you have to put it all together, and it takes everyone to be successful.
We really had that mindset going in and we said, this is raw and this is real and this is where we are right now today. So we're not looking for somebody to say, but I'm going to, or but I've already, or no defensive. We're just looking at where we are at this moment and how we can move forward. So that was our very, very productive one day.
Wow.
We were tired, but it
A
was
lot
a
of
good
it in
day.
there,
Board members, questions, comments?
Keep up the good work.
And how often are you gonna do these? Or was this a one-time?
This was our mid-year summit, and so we had never had a mid-year summit before. We have the one in the summer. And at the summer one from this past summer, actually, the team was like, we need something mid-year to keep us going for the rest of the year. And so this is what we did mid-year this year. And so we'll revisit this before the end of the school year for sure. And then we said in that meeting that we would revisit this at principals meetings or at district leadership or executive leadership meetings as needed. And so it's continuous, it's all the time. Anytime you pull up that tool, most of the time it'll say this was edited hours ago, because somebody is always in there adding to it, adding evidence, adding something that they've done. And so there's a lot of hands in on that one piece, but we revisit often.
And are you gonna be able to replicate it? One of the big issues we have was turnover in staff. If someone happens to leave, it's easily replicated with them.
Yes.
Not that I want any of you guys to leave, but just in case.
Madam,
Mr. Pettis?
yeah, so I think this tool is important in, if you have transition processes, you know, like if somebody does happen to leave, then you have a system in place where somebody can step in and kind of see where we're at without going back to square one.
One thing that's really important to have continuity so that we're not floundering around next year saying, well, where are we gonna go from here? We already have that plan, and that should be part of that project implementation they're talking about. I don't think, if we were to question any of the other districts, do they have something like this that they utilize? Or can we coin the monitoring tool, because it's belongs to GCCS now, so, good job.
Mr. President, and Matt, Daley, I'm glad you brought up that point, because I don't know of any other district that delves into their strategic plan this deeply, thoroughly. And I think we could coin this and we should copyright it.
Yeah, there you go. I couldn't think of the word copyright. yes.
Trademark, that's what we're gonna do.
And then we can send it to Central.
Central.
No?
Need help.
Other comments? I am so happy with all that you've done. And what I saw there and what you are saying now makes that strategic plan a living document. It is our expectation that we achieve those goals. That has to be done in this way. We have to hold all of you, the superintendent on, to achieve the goals that the families want. And so it's, as I said to you then, is that these parents, these families count on us. And we've got outstanding staff who have just demonstrated a high degree of professionalism in pulling this together. And it's extremely commendable. There's more that can be said, but we also want to play a part in this, and so we have a place to play it. But you have given us a solid foundation for us and how we are engaged with the process. Strategic plans are things that the board is what we, the board, must consider to be its instrument for holding us accountable for all that we do. And everything is driven by that. And when I spoke at the hearing the other day, I primarily spoke about the strategic plan and about our work on the DLP and all that, because everything else must fall secondary to what we do here in the plans and what you do in organizing effective teaching and leading. And you've done that real well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pettis, action items.
Sir, Mr. President, Board, the first action item is a consideration of approval for the Grants High School student to graduate early, and I do recommend approval of this action item.
Motion?
Let's-
Oh,
let's hear from you. Let's hear from you.
I was looking and I said, wait a minute, and then I said, okay, now I know why you guys are here.
No, we were here because we enjoyed working.
Oh, okay. You were here to hear all of this stuff, but we want to hear about you. So go ahead.
Thank you for allowing us to be here, Mr. President, Mr. Superintendent, district leaders, board members. I would like to introduce you to our student at Grants High School. This is Mr. Fabian Jaramillo, who is also my sixth grader many years ago. So I've had an opportunity to kind of watch him grow this whole time. His family, myself, and we are trying to request an early graduation for Mr. Jaramillo. He has spent the last 9 semesters at Grants High School doing our virtual program. He has been part of the PLC on site and most recently been part of the PLC at home. Mom called me right after the Christmas break and said, can you check, because we have 2 boys. We have Adrian, who's a senior, and Fabian, who's a junior. And she said, can you kind of just check on their progress, see where we're at? When I was doing that, I made the discovery that Fabian is dangerously close to graduation as well. He is excelled in that program. He has met the credit requirements to be considered a spring semester senior. And I talked to Mom about that, and I kind of explained to her that, if we could get board approval, that I could have both of her babies graduate at the same time. Adrian on time and Fabian a year ahead. So Fabian is cohort 2024, but like I said, he has earned credit enough to be considered a 23 cohort senior and on track. He's currently enrolled in every class that he needs to graduate with the New Mexico PD requirements, and so we are requesting that he graduate with our spring 2023 cohort.
I like you. I might change your mind.
Said it all.
So, yeah.
Fabian, introduce us to your family.
That's my mom, my dad.
Are their names? Would you come stand by?
Let me get on your guys' way.
Do you have any words to say?
Mary Jaramillo, his mother. I'm just extremely proud. I don't know.
Richard Jaramillo, I'm his father, and yeah, I'm proud of him and all the effort he's made towards working on getting his diploma. And thanks to all the teachers that helped him and stuff.
It's amazing. And you did a lot of work. So you need to thank them too.
Yeah.
Thank your parents.
Especially.
Mom and dad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's gonna be quite a celebration this coming May, Any words?
Mr. President, to the family, congratulations to have a student of this caliber with us. We'll be sad to lose him, but most gracious that he will be able to go on and hopefully do something else. You want to go to college and all that good stuff? I hope so. Good.
I haven't think about it yet.
You're thinking about it. Well, let's get past that. Say, yeah, we want to go. That's what Mom and Dad, I'm hoping that they're, because it's for you to be able to do this in a timely manner, tells us that, intellectually, you should be able to move forward pretty quickly and advance in some college area, whether it's, academics or sports or whatever. I wholeheartedly encourage you to go and do this. Don't be so excited. I don't want you to, throw a shoe there,
Emily, Ms. Daly?
You have to, we've been just through like 2 years of this virtual teaching, and you have to know that that requires great discipline and responsibility to master those classes. It's not an easy task, and we have a lot of students who aren't as capable as you two that will continue doing that. And so you've achieved something at great lengths, and he couldn't have done it without the support of his family. That's very important. Otherwise, who makes him sit down and tells him, get on the computer, do this? Do you have any homework? There's a great sensitivity in the support from the family. And the only thing I'm worried about, you're gonna miss a whole year of athletics. I guess that doesn't drive you, which is good. You're more career oriented. But most of our young men today, they thrive on athletics. And he looks very familiar, so I'm thinking he's on some of the teams that we've watched. And you're not one of those basketball stars, are you? Not yet? No, okay. But good luck, and you've made the tremendous gains in your adulthood, and that should carry you forward. Thank you very much for letting us be a part of it.
Call for motion, please.
I'll make a motion, we approve early graduation for Mr. Hudson.
Is there a second? Richard
I
Jones,
second.
Motion by Richard Jones. Is there a second? Emily Daly. For Grants High School student Fabian Jaramillo to graduate early as presented. Motion, roll call.
Elliot Daly,
Yes.
Robert Hayes,
Yes.
Richard.
Aye.
Don Ortiz,
Yes.
Dr. Guyer Shambo.
Yes. Motion carries. Congratulations.
We'll see you in May.
Just one last question. Fabian, is your older brother upset with you because now you share this limelight? Yeah.
He's like, I don't wanna have a party with my brother.
There he goes.
Good luck.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, be consideration of next item, MOU.
Yes, sir. Next action item, consideration approval for memorandum of understanding, MOU with the city of Grants. I recommend that we approve this action item.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Hayes, seconded by
I'll second.
Ortiz, and approval of memorandum of understanding with the city of Grants as presented. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Elliot Daly,
Yes.
Robert Hayes,
Yes.
Richard Jones,
Aye.
Don Ortiz,
Yes.
Dr. Guyer Shambo.
Yes. C, consideration of approval of resolution, Ed Tech.
So, Mr. President, Board, these next action item is a consideration of approval of resolution declaring the need to acquire educational technology equipment, a necessity resolution. I do recommend that we approve this action item.
Is there a motion? Moved by Emily Daly, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Hayes, and approval of resolution declaring the need to acquire ed technology equipment necessity resolution as presented. Discussion?
Yes, Mr. President, I have with us Anthony, RBC Capital. Regina, are you on?
I don't see him moving, so I don't
No.
know.
They're frozen.
They're frozen. We're waiting for the Anthony, is that, am I correct?
Yes. Anthony, that's on.
Yes, Anthony.
Is that individual there?
I believe so. Here he comes.
Good evening, superintendents, members of the board. We're online this evening for the approval of the resolution and application of the education technology notes through NMFA. I'll defer over to Regina. It seems like her screen may be frozen. If you guys just want to hang on 1 second. But all is well from our perspective. And if you guys have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Questions? Are there any questions, board members? We don't have any questions. We do appreciate you taking the time to participate in this. It'll be very brief and we will get to the action. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Emiliano Daly. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Richard Jones to approve the resolution declaring the need to acquire educational technology equipment necessity resolution as presented. Discussion, final? Seeing none, roll call.
Daly,
Yes.
Robert Hayes,
Yes.
Richard Jones.
Aye.
Ron Ortiz,
Yes.
Dr. Guyer Shambo.
Yes, motion carries. D,
Yes, Mr. President, alongside that resolution.
thank you.
Will also
Thank
be
you all.
included in the next action item. Consideration of approval of resolution to submit an application to the New Mexico Finance Authority for assistance to acquire educational technology equipment. This is the application resolution, and I also recommend that we approve this action item as presented.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Bob Hayes, is there a second? Second by Ron Ortiz, and approval of resolution to submit an application to the New Mexico Finance Authority for assistance to acquire educational technology equipment as presented. Roll call.
Daly,
Yes.
Robert Hayes,
Yes.
Richard Jones.
Aye.
Ron Ortiz,
Yes.
Dr. Guyer Shambo.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. They're both passed.
Thank you all. We appreciate the opportunity to work with the school district and look forward to moving forward.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's continue on with the agenda. E, consideration and adoption of the Indian policies and procedures.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Ward, this is consideration of approval, the adoption of the 2023-2024 Indian Policies and Procedures, IPP. I recommend that we approve this action item as presented.
This is part of the impact aid application, am I correct?
Yes, it's a component.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved, Bob Hayes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Emiliano Daly, and approval of the adoption of the 2023-2024 Indian policies and procedures presented. Is there discussion?
I just got a question,
Yes.
or a couple questions.
Sure.
It hasn't changed. This has been the same
No.
as we've had in the past.
No.
Appendix B here, on the back to here, who is this questionnaire for? And where is it?
Oh, excuse me, let me get my,
And where does it go to?
wait,
It acts like we're asking, I don't know if we're asking all the tribal
which,
government, appendix B.
Page 13.
Annual screening checklist.
It's a,
Yes, and Dr. Martin has been involved in this deeply.
yes, sir. It's a checklist actually coming from the federal government. It's a checklist that we use to find out whether the procedures in the IPP actually address the policies that are in the IPP itself. So when stakeholders involved with going over the IPP to figure out whether amendments are necessary to the procedures, that's the checklist they use to actually find out if those amendments are necessary.
Okay, so the federal government sends this checklist
Yes, sir.
out to our stakeholders.
Yes, sir. It's actually in the impact aid application itself. So there are attachments to the impact aid application. Those are things that stakeholders can use to figure out whether amendments to the procedures in achieving the policies of the IPP are necessary.
And then they send their answers back to,
We don't really send anything back, but it's just sort of a guiding document.
okay, so do they turn the questionnaires into the school district? I mean, I don't understand where we're getting, what do you do with these answers? Or who does what with these answers?
To try and help, I believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Martin, that you included these appendixes as informational only. The board is only approving the
We don't-
IPP.
So we're only approving the policies.
No, I understand that.
I mean, I didn't realize that too. Now I see what this is.
I understand that. I still don't understand how this tool is used, I guess.
It's added as an informational piece in the IPP, but it's a tool, a guide for stakeholders who put together procedures of the IPP in achieving those policies. It's not the school district that actually
Well,
answers them and
this
forwards.
is what I think, is that in the 6 policies, we have to, every year, get their signature. One of the things that the policy says, do you have a process by which you guys review the IPP? So in the fall, before in the fall, we're to get together with the tribes to see whether there's any need to change or improve the IPP, these policies. And I gather this would be an instrument that could be used to help in that discussion.
Yes.
So in that context, we are not approving this instrument. You're saying that it can be used in that process for helping to improve or revise the IPP. Is that?
Because the policies in the IPP are fixed and they're provided by the state. It's only the procedures in achieving those policies that our stakeholders can amend. And it's a tool they can use to figure out whether amendments are necessary to the procedures in achieving those policies.
What I would suggest is that if it's for them, we also should have one for ourselves, so that we would have an idea of whether or not we have done a good job with this thing.
Well, I mean, I appreciate your answer, and I understand, it's a tool, but it's a questionnaire. Is what I'm getting is, there's questions on here that are to be answered.
By somebody.
And read, the answers to read by somebody. I mean, I don't understand the government giving it to them and here and then discuss these answers that you wrote amongst yourselves.
Well,
You
yeah, in years gone by, I've seen the Impact Aid, excuse me, generate some tools for use as a resource. And this is what I think it is. It's more of a resource than anything else. So that what we wouldn't want to do, I would hope the administration would take this and see how it will help us get through the process of doing the annual review of the policies. And so that when we get to them, we will have that dialogue with them. If they're going to use this, and if we have our own approach to this, that dialogue will then look at each one, because it's taking each one of these policies and it's asking, did we all do a good job of dealing with that particular policy?
Well, Mr. President, is this just an internal review or an external review?
It sounds like it's more of a resource.
Just a resource.
That's what I see.
But it's really a grading program that's sent to our stakeholders from the federal government.
Well, that's true, because
what
it
it
is,
is.
yeah, it could be.
But it's also to ensure that we have parental engagement and discussion with, because that's where the impact aid funds are utilized.
You notice it talks about parents,
It does.
which is
No,
great.
I'm not against this
No,
tool.
he
I still
just
don't
wants to
think
know
I
how
have
to
the
use it.
answer.
Where's it going to?
Crack at it if I could, Mr. President. I think that we utilize this as a internal guide only. So when we're working through the processes of developing IPP, Dr. Martin, us, Roseanne, we can use this and go look through it and ask ourselves these questions. It's an internal
Review.
check, review, and making sure that we're on track. We're not forgetting, did we do this, did we do this? And we don't submit it to anyone.
No, we don't.
What I think would be it'd be a good tool to help ensure that when we come to that time in the fall, and we're having that discussion about whether or not we need to improve this, that we will have given them an opportunity to do it in an organized fashion, other than just to sometimes get off the cuff comments from them about different things. It basically would make sure that when I'm looking at this, it makes sure that they understand that if they're going to review the policies, that they need to do due diligence in looking through this and making sure that we do that. And then we have that conversation with them. And I think in that sense, it can be helpful. And you can have it written in this fashion, or you can have it another way. But it's a resource, take a look at it, make use of it. And you don't necessarily have to give it out until you're ready. We're only gonna approve the IPP. And then you will make use of this resource tool, that's what I would say it is. And see whether or not it helps improve that. What I always think is important is in this process, whenever we're working with stakeholder groups, we have a clear understanding of what it is we're talking about. Because we can get off track fairly quickly. This basically keeps us all focused on precisely what the board is approving. We're approving 6 policies. And we want them to do it in the fashion that we're saying here. And if this is gonna help you in engaging in that discussion with them, then if there's any other resource tools you wanna use, by all means. That's what but it's a good point. I didn't see this right off the bat.
And then there's a full chart on the last page that kind of gives you how the process is moved through it.
That's good.
I'm not anti any of them. I just wanted to ask about that. That's a little
That we haven't seen before.
something I've never seen before, and was curious where it was driven from.
Yeah, okay.
And what is the desired outcome from it being out there? And then my next question would be, how do we feel about getting everything signed, these signatures? Not that we have to have them, and I know in the past we've had some that.
Where are we at?
So, Dr. Martin, I talked to you about this a few days ago, and it looks like Laguna, Acoma, and Navajo are ready to sign as if this is approved by the board.
Yeah, we've had 4 meetings prior to coming up with the final draft. One in March, another one in June, one in October, and December. And finally, last July 11th, we had a public hearing where 15 representatives from the different tribes were there, and 13 agreed for it to be brought to the board and 2 abstain. And so,
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Got it?
Great, I'm ready.
As am I.
Roll call.
Emily Daily,
Yes.
Robert Hayes,
Yes.
Richard Jones,
Aye.
Ron Ortiz. Yes. Dr. Guyer Shambo.
Yes, motion carries. Consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. President, Board, I recommend, consent agenda. I recommend that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion we approve.
Mr. Jones made a motion, seconded by Emily Adeni. Approval of the consent agenda as presented. Roll call?
Emily Daily,
Yes.
Robert Hayes,
Yes.
Richard Jones,
Aye.
Ron Ortiz,
Yes.
Dr. Guyer Shambo.
Yes, motion carries. Superintendent's report?
Mr. President, Board, just a quick update on security. Many things that we have going on. One of the newest is that we're connecting with Apex Security and Training Organization. We'll be running our guards through a series of training. I believe there are 4-day trainings, and we'll be, instead of taking all of our guards at once, we'll be taking 2 or 3 at a time to get them through this training, to get them all up to at least the level 1 guard training. The trainers do go up to a level 3 guard training, which allows them the ability to carry a weapon. But we want to make sure that we have all of our guards trained up to highest level as possible. alongside that, we're gonna have some of them going through the 40-hour SRO training as well. So we got two different things going on. The New Mexico Psychology Group for the SRO training, Apex for the security guard training. So those are up and coming and probably we'll be starting January 23rd, next Monday.
So have we?
Questions?
Yeah, have we improved the background checks, especially like for security and one of the things we were deemed on?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So the background check, the only background check that I think that, when we had our audit, when a background check was pulled where there was a claim that the background check wasn't done properly. However, Lisa will argue that point because as far as she's concerned and her staff, we don't have anybody on staff that has not undergone a background check. So we're still debating that one background check. But our system is in place where nobody will be under our authority and exposed to children without a background check. So that is in place. With the audit, the LFC audit brought it out is that is questioning the background checks as well. We used to be able to accept the PED's licensure background checks, and that was just the way every district would do it. If the PED accepted and did the background check for the license, we said, okay, they're good to go. But 2 or 3 years ago, they changed that and said, well, that's no longer enough. They do that, but we also have to do a local background check, and we've complied with that every step of the way.
Just making sure.
Yes.
Land acquisition?
Yeah, so, Mr. President, Board, so, we've been talking about and getting approvals to get the land acquired. I believe it's about 6 acres. There's a map. No, that's the map for the other resolution. But the Sacalaris piece that it's on the corner there, it's about 6 acres or so. So we were successful in going through the entire process, made the offer, signed the check. The land now belongs to the Grand Cibola County School District. So the land is there and we're ready to go the next step in designing and starting to think about building and making that a reality. I know, Mr. Hayes, thank you for the information that you brought forward, because in that property, not everything is close by as far as utilities and so on. So we're gonna probably need to talk about thinking about
Gas and sewer, I believe.
having
Everything
enough,
else is there.
having enough funds to make sure we cover that, to extend it in.
Mr. President, I was astounded at the cost for 2 blocks worth of sewer line here in the city. Recently was in excess of $160,000.
So we better take a look at this carefully.
It was outrageous. Well, the piece to move in front of Mesa View on Washington down that side road is in excess of $500,000. The city's taking up. So, yeah. And just the cost have skyrocketed, 300% in the past 3 years. It's just ridiculous. Just an idea.
Yeah, no, thank you for that heads up.
Okay, executive session. A, discussion of limited personnel matters pursuant to section 1015-1H2 of the Open Meetings Act for discussion of the evaluation of the superintendent, including receipt of presentation by superintendent on his evaluation pursuant to section 1015, the Open Meetings Act, and the board will meet in executive session to discuss practices, the parameter and process of evaluating the superintendent contract amendments with his legal counsel under the attorney-client privilege in anticipation of litigation. There is I'd like to, I can amend this. We will not have the discussion, we will not have the presentation of the superintendent on his evaluation tonight. That would be deferred. So that's what I'd like to have us a vote on when it comes to this, minus the receipt of presentation by superintendent on his evaluation.
Shouldn't we have amended that, start?
Didn't see that.
Let's see here.
I can amend, we can vote on the amendment.
Not really. You can fix it in the motion. No table. There's just no action on that part. You can fix it in the motion where you can make it and make a motion to go into executive session for this and this only. The other is a no action. You understand what I'm saying?
So basically, when we make the motion, it'll be to move to and delete that section.
You just make a motion for what we're gonna go talk about.
Yes.
And the rest is do not.
Okay.
Nothing. There's no, at this point, there's no tabling, there's no action taken on that part.
You can move into executive
Yeah, I'm
session.
holding on, we've got two. Let me, Mr. Sanchez.
Executive.
This one yet.
Meeting.
Okay, wait, I'm just gonna make sure I mark off this one and I'll show it to you.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to delete including receipt of presentation by the superintendent's evaluation in the motion. Okay? Okay, the motion, and then there's a second one, board discussion with its legal counsel under the attorney-client privilege in anticipation of litigation pursuant to 1015-1H7 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss school district's compliance with and review of issues arising from the LFC audit related to the use. So I'm gonna make a motion right now for the both of them. And then you guys can,
Okay.
first and second it. Motion is for the discussion of limited personnel matters pursuant to section 1015-1H2 of the Open Meetings Act for discussion of the evaluation of the superintendent and pursuant to section 1015-H1 of the Open Meetings Act, the board will meet in executive session to discuss best practices, the parameters and process of evaluating the superintendent contract amendments with its legal counsel under the attorney-client privilege in anticipation of litigation, or discussion with its legal counsel under the attorney-client privilege in anticipation of litigation pursuant to section 1015-1H7 of the Meetings Act to discuss school district's compliance with and review issues arising from the LFC audit related to the respective statutory authorities of the parties, including the production of student information. Is there a motion?
That was the motion. I'll second it.
You second it. Okay, I made the motion. And Ron, thank you very much to second it to go into executive session as amended.
Not amended.
As presented.
As presented.
As presented, excuse me, apologize. Thank you again. Roll call.
Chairman Hunt Daily,
Yes.
Robert Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Ron Ortiz.
Yes.
Dr. Guy Shambo.
Yes. Motion carries. At 6:44. Give us 5 minutes. Thank you very much for being here. We do expect you back.
Yeah, right. I don't think so.
Executive session one?
No, we will act on
Nothing, can you hear us? You can't see how to get off of that.
See if he's still there.
What kind of goodies you got in there, Dr. Guy?
Get your hands out of my goods. But, you know,
You
you
two stop
probably
fighting
don't need
over
all the
the-
candy, so why don't you give me yours?
Nothing, can you hear us?
That little kid of mine will eat it.
Yes, I can.
All right, let's come out. He can hear us.
We ready? Motion to reconvene regular session.
Moved.
So moved by Bob Hayes, seconded by Richard Jones to reconvene regular session. As presented, roll call.
Emily Hunt Daly? Yes. Robert Hayes?
Yes.
Richard Jones?
Aye.
Ron Ortiz?
Yes.
Dr. Guyer Shamble?
Yes, we've reconvened at, what time?
8:11 or 8:10?
11? Okay. The motion carries. Action item, consideration of approval of the superintendent's evaluation process and timelines as shown on the revised form sheet. Is there a motion to that
Make a
effect?
motion, we approve.
Motion approved.
I'll
Motion
second.
to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ron Ortiz. Motion was made by Richard Jones, so it was seconded by Ron Ortiz to approve the superintendent evaluation processes timelines as shown. Roll call.
Emily Hunt Daly?
Yes.
Robert Hayes?
Yes.
Richard Jones?
Aye.
Ron Ortiz?
Yes.
Dr. Guyer Shamble?
Yes, motion carries. Announcements. If any of you still have some idea about going to the institute in February, let her know. So she'll be able to cancel or modify hotel arrangements and fees.
Only Friday and Saturday for me.
That'd be Friday night and Saturday for me too, not the only time.
No, we want to just do Saturday,
I need to go the night before, stay that night, and then go to the meeting in the morning.
because so he'll pick up the sessions on Saturday. So,
So you'll stay Friday,
Yeah.
Friday night?
Friday night, yeah, that'd be the only time I'd be able to go.
Ron,
I'm not sure yet.
okay.
I told her
let's just-
I'd get with him.
You see all of this? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion made by Richard Jones to adjourn, seconded by Emily Daly to adjourn the meeting. Roll call.
Emily Hunt Daly?
Yes.
Robert Hayes?
Yes.
Richard Jones? Ron Ortiz?
Yes.
Dr. Guyer Shamble?
Yes. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned at
8:13?
8:13. Our clock's been driving me. Go open up all your kids.
We're like ratchet and raving. What happened?
It's because we're not, they're not.
Mr. Hayes?
Yeah.